I'd been watching Alicia drift for months, like a boat that still looks tied to the dock but keeps pulling on the rope. My name's Greg Foster, 37 years old, district manager for a chain of family restaurants across the Midwest. Nothing glamorous, but steady work that kept our bills paid and our 2 kids fed. I thought I understood women after 15 years of marriage, but Alicia had become a puzzle I couldn't solve. It started with innocent attention at the gym, where she worked as a fitness instructor. Men would linger after her classes, asking questions that had nothing to do with proper squat form. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from clients who needed advice at midnight. When I mentioned it seemed excessive, she'd roll her eyes and call me paranoid. "Greg, you're being ridiculous," she'd say, not looking up from her screen. "These people pay good money for my expertise. I'm not going to ignore them just because you're insecure." But insecurity wasn't the right word for what I felt. It was more like watching someone change the rules of a game mid-play without telling the other players. Alicia started going out more often with her best friend Susie Park, hitting clubs downtown that seemed designed for people 10 years younger than us. She'd come home at 3 in the morning, makeup smeared, claiming they'd just been dancing and talking. The social media posts told a different story. Photos of her laughing with random men, their hands on her waist, her smile bright and flirtatious. When I asked about it, she'd shrug and say, "What, I can't have friends now?" Then came Dominic Ruiz. Dom worked as a foreman at the automotive parts factory across town. He was married to Susie, which should have made him safe territory, but nothing about Dom felt safe. He was the kind of guy who flexed his biceps when he shook your hand and called every woman sweetheart, regardless of their name. Alicia started mentioning him more often, always in the context of the gym. "Dom thinks I should start teaching advanced classes," she'd say over dinner while our kids, Ben and Ella, picked at their vegetables. "He says I have natural leadership qualities." "Dom says a lot of things," I'd reply, trying to keep my voice neutral. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just that maybe you should make your own decisions about your career." She'd give me that look then, the one that said I was being unreasonable again. The conversation would die, and we'd eat in silence while the kids chattered about their day at school. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in October. My parents had invited us for dinner, something they did once a month to maintain the illusion of family closeness. Mom always cooked too much food, and Dad always asked me about work like he actually understood what a district manager did. It was predictable and comfortable, exactly what I needed after weeks of tension at home. Alicia had been on her phone during the entire drive over, texting someone and smiling at the responses. She barely looked up when we pulled into my parents' driveway, just mumbled something about needing to finish this conversation. "Can you put that away for a few hours?" I asked as we walked to the front door. "It's just my parents." "Relax, Greg. The world doesn't stop because your mom made pot roast." My mother, Carol Foster, greeted us with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for visiting dignitaries. She'd clearly spent hours preparing, evident from the perfectly set table and the smell of homemade bread wafting from the kitchen. My father, Bill, emerged from his recliner to shake my hand and kiss Alicia's cheek, his attempt at being the gracious host. "Alicia, you look wonderful," Mom said, taking her coat. "How's the fitness business?" "Oh, keeping busy," Alicia replied, already reaching for her phone again. "Actually, I might need to step outside later. I'm coordinating a special training session." Dad raised an eyebrow. "On a Thursday night?" "Fitness doesn't keep regular hours, Mr. Foster." We sat down to dinner, and Mom launched into her usual routine of asking about the kids, work, and our plans for the holidays. Alicia participated just enough to avoid seeming rude, but I could see her attention was elsewhere. Her phone sat next to her plate, lighting up every few minutes with new messages. "So, Greg tells us you've been working with some new clients," Dad said, clearly trying to include Alicia in the conversation. "A few, yes. There's this one guy, Dom, who's really motivated. He's pushing me to expand my training programs." Mom smiled. "That's wonderful, dear. It's nice when you find clients who appreciate your expertise." "Oh, Dom definitely appreciates me," Alicia said, and something in her tone made me look up from my mashed potatoes. The conversation continued, but I found myself watching my wife more carefully. The way she smiled when her phone buzzed, the way she angled the screen away from me when she read messages, the way she seemed more animated talking about Dom than she had about anything else in months. After dinner, we moved to the living room for coffee and Mom's famous apple pie. Alicia sat next to me on the couch, close enough that I could smell her perfume and feel the warmth of her body. For a moment, it felt normal again, like we were still the couple who'd fallen in love in college and built a life together. Then she reached over and took my hand. "You know," she said, loud enough for my parents to hear, Your son's really sweet. Mom beamed. Dad nodded approvingly. I squeezed her hand, grateful for what felt like a public affirmation of our marriage. But Alicia wasn't finished. He's sweet, but I'm still exploring my options. The room went silent. Mom's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Dad's newspaper rustled as he set it down completely. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach by someone I'd never seen coming. She said it with a smile, like she was sharing a cute anecdote about our relationship, like she was talking about choosing between restaurants or vacation destinations, not announcing to my parents that their son wasn't enough for her. I let go of her hand. The absence of contact seemed to wake her up to what she'd just said. Her eyes widened slightly, and she started to laugh, the nervous kind that people use when they realize they've made a mistake. I mean, we're all still figuring things out, right? Marriage is a journey, and I stood up. We should go, I said quietly. Greg, sit down. I was just joking. Your parents know I was joking, right, Mrs. Foster? Mom looked like she'd witnessed a car accident. Dad was staring at his hands, probably wondering how he was supposed to respond to his daughter-in-law announcing she was shopping around for a better husband. You're free to explain now, I said, looking down at Alicia still sitting on the couch. Because you're not explaining as my partner anymore. What does that mean? Greg, you're overreacting. It was a joke. But it wasn't a joke, and we all knew it. It was the truth, finally spoken out loud in front of witnesses. She'd been exploring her options for months, and I'd been pretending not to notice. I walked to the front door and grabbed our coats. Behind me, I could hear Alicia's voice getting higher and more desperate as she tried to convince my parents that she hadn't meant what she'd obviously meant. Greg, wait. She caught up with me in the driveway, her heels clicking on the concrete. You can't just leave like this. Watch me. I was drinking wine, and it came out wrong. You know I love you. I turned to face her under the porch light. She looked beautiful, like always, but for the first time in years, her beauty felt like a weapon being used against me. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you love having me as backup while you figure out if you can do better. That's not... Is there someone else, Alicia? The question hung in the air between us. She could have said no. She could have laughed and called me crazy, and maybe, just maybe, we could have found our way back from this moment. Instead, she looked away. It's complicated, she whispered. And there it was. The confirmation I'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure. My wife, the mother of my children, the woman I'd spent 15 years building a life with, had found someone else. No, I said, opening my car door. It's actually very simple. You made your choice. I drove home alone, leaving her to find her own way back. In the rearview mirror, I could see her standing in my parents' driveway, her phone already pressed to her ear, probably calling the person who'd been texting her all evening. The rope had finally snapped, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The next morning, Alicia acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, packed the kids' lunches, and kissed my cheek before I left for work, maintaining the routine that had defined our mornings for over a decade. But something fundamental had shifted between us, like a foundation crack that looks small on the surface but runs all the way down to bedrock. We need to talk tonight, I said as I grabbed my keys. Of course, honey, I think you'll feel better once I explain everything. But I didn't want her explanations anymore. I wanted the truth, and after 15 years of marriage, I'd learned to recognize the difference. Work provided a temporary distraction. I spent the day visiting 3 different restaurant locations, dealing with staffing issues, inventory problems, and the usual corporate bureaucracy that kept food service chains running. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from Alicia, each message more apologetic than the last. I'm so sorry about last night. I don't know what came over me. Can we please talk? I hate when we fight. I love you, Greg. You have to believe that. I didn't respond to any of them. Around lunchtime, my best friend Richard Martinez called. Richard and I had known each other since high school, and he'd been the best man at my wedding. He worked as a freelance graphic designer and had always been the type of friend who could read between the lines of what I wasn't saying. Heard there was some drama at your parents' house last night, he said without preamble. News travels fast. Your mom called my mom. You know how that works. I did know. Our mothers had been friends for 30 years, which meant any family crisis became community knowledge within 24 hours. Want to talk about it? Richard asked. Not over the phone. Beer tonight? Nikki's working late, so I'm free. Nikki was Richard's wife, a nurse at the local hospital who worked rotating shifts. She was one of the few people who'd always been straight with me about Alicia, though she'd been diplomatic about it. Yeah, okay. Murphy's at 7? See you there. Murphy's Pub was the kind of neighborhood bar that served decent burgers and minded its own business. Richard was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and scrolling through his phone at a corner table. "You look like hell," he said as I sat down. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." "What happened last night?" I told him everything, from the months of watching Alicia drift away to her announcement at my parents' dinner table. Richard listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head or muttering under his breath. "Jesus, Greg, I'm sorry." "Are you surprised?" He was quiet for a long moment, the kind of silence that meant he was choosing his words carefully. "Honestly, no. Nikki and I have been worried about you guys for a while." "Why didn't you say anything?" "What were we supposed to say? Hey, Greg, your wife seems to be flirting with every guy in town." You would have gotten defensive and we would have lost a friend. He was right. I would have defended Alicia, made excuses for her behavior, and probably avoided Richard and Nikki for months afterward. That's what people do when they're not ready to face the truth about their marriages. "So who is he?" Richard asked. "Dom Ruiz. He's married to Susie Park, Alicia's best friend. The guy who looks like he bench presses small cars. That's him." "Shit. How long has it been going on?" "I don't know. Maybe a few months?" She admitted there was someone, but said it was complicated. Richard took a long drink of his beer. "What are you going to do?" It was a good question, and I didn't have a good answer. The rational part of me knew I should confront Alicia directly, demand the whole truth, and then figure out whether our marriage was worth saving. But another part of me, a part that had been growing stronger since last night, wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made any decisions. "I need to know how deep this goes," I said finally. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I need to know if she's just having an emotional affair or if it's physical. I need to know how many people know about it. I need to know if she's planning to leave me or if she thinks she can have both of us." "That sounds like detective work." "Maybe." Richard studied my face across the table. "You're not thinking about doing anything stupid, are you?" "Define stupid." "Anything that ends with you in jail or on the evening news." "No, nothing like that. I just want to know what I'm dealing with before I decide how to handle it." We talked for another hour, mostly about practical things like lawyers and custody arrangements and how to protect my assets if things went south. Richard offered to help however he could, and I appreciated the support more than I could express. When I got home around 9, the house was quiet. Ben and Ella were already in bed, and Alicia was in the living room watching television. She looked up when I walked in, her expression hopeful and nervous. "How was your day?" she asked. "Fine. Yours?" I spent most of it thinking about last night. "Greg, I'm really sorry. I know how it sounded, but I didn't mean it the way you took it." I sat down in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. "How did you mean it?" "I just meant that we're both still young, and sometimes I wonder if we settled down too early. It doesn't mean I want to be with someone else." "But you are with someone else." Her face flushed. It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands folded in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Dom and I have become close. He understands things about me that you don't." "What kind of things?" "He thinks I'm capable of more than just being a wife and mother. He encourages my ambitions." "I've always encouraged your ambitions." "No, you've tolerated them. There's a difference." It stung because there might have been some truth to it. I'd supported Alicia's fitness career, but I'd also worried about the late nights and the male attention that came with it. Maybe my support had come with conditions that I hadn't even recognized. "Are you sleeping with him?" I asked. "Greg, it's a simple question, Alicia. Are you sleeping with Dom Ruiz?" "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is. Either you are or you aren't." She looked up at me then, and I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Not guilt, exactly, but a kind of defiance, like she was tired of pretending to be someone she wasn't. "We've been intimate, yes, but it's not just physical, it's emotional too." The words hit me like a physical blow. Even though I'd suspected, even though I'd been preparing myself for this possibility, hearing her admit it out loud was devastating. "How long?" I asked. "A few months?" "How many people know?" "Just Susie, and now you." "Where?" "Greg, please, don't torture yourself with details." "Where, Alicia?" "His place mostly, sometimes the gym after hours." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. Normal people living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. I wondered how many of them were having conversations like this behind their closed doors. "What do you want?" I asked without turning around. "I want us to work through this. I want our family to stay together." "And Dom?" "I don't know. I'm confused, Greg. I love you, but I have feelings for him too. You can't have both of us. Why not? I turned around to face her. Because that's not how marriage works. You made vows, Alicia. You promised to forsake all others. Those vows were made 15 years ago. People change, needs change. So what are you proposing? That I just accept sharing you with another man? I'm proposing that we figure this out together, like adults. No. No? I'm not sharing you with anyone. If you want to be with Dom, then be with Dom. But you can't be with both of us. She started crying then, the kind of tears that were probably genuine, but felt manipulative nonetheless. I don't want to lose you, she said. Then choose. It's not that easy. Yes, it is. You're making it complicated because you want to keep all your options open. But I'm not an option, Alicia. I'm your husband. Either that means something to you, or it doesn't. I left her crying in the living room and went upstairs to our bedroom. The space that had once felt like our private sanctuary now felt contaminated by the knowledge of her betrayal. I wondered how many nights she'd lain next to me thinking about him, planning their next encounter, comparing us in ways I'd never know. Sleep was impossible. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to Alicia move around downstairs, probably texting Dom about our conversation. By morning, I'd made a decision. I was going to find out exactly what I was dealing with, and then I was going to decide what to do about it. The next few days passed in a strange kind of suspended animation. Alicia and I maintained the basic routines of family life, getting the kids ready for school, eating dinner together, watching television in the evening. But underneath the surface, everything had changed. She was trying to act normal while I was quietly conducting reconnaissance on my own marriage. I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. The way she angled her phone away from me when texting, the new clothes that appeared in her wardrobe, items that seemed designed to attract attention rather than provide comfort. The way she talked about her work schedule, mentioning late training sessions and weekend workshops that didn't appear on the gym's public calendar. On Saturday morning, while Alicia was at one of those mysterious training sessions and the kids were at their grandmother's house, I did something I'd never imagined myself doing. I searched through her personal belongings. I felt like a criminal going through her dresser drawers and closet, but I needed to understand the scope of what I was dealing with. Hidden in the back of her jewelry box, I found a burner phone I'd never seen before. The recent call log showed dozens of conversations with a number I didn't recognize, but I had a pretty good idea who it belonged to. The text messages were worse than I'd imagined. Can't wait to see you tonight. Greg's working late again. Last night was incredible. You make me feel alive. I think about you constantly. This is driving me crazy. Do you think we should tell them? I hate sneaking around. Not yet. Let me figure out how to handle Greg first. There were photos too. Nothing pornographic, but intimate enough to make my stomach turn. Pictures of them together at restaurants I'd never been to, at Dom's house while Susie was apparently at work, in hotel rooms that suggested this had been going on longer than a few months. I photographed everything with my own phone, then put the burner back exactly where I'd found it. If Alicia wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I understood all the rules. That afternoon, I called Richard. I need a favor, I said. What kind of favor? The kind you probably don't want to do. Try me. I told him what I'd discovered and what I was planning. Richard was quiet for a long time after I finished. Greg, I understand why you're angry, but are you sure this is the right approach? What would you do if it was Nikki? I'd probably want to kill someone, but that doesn't mean it's the smart thing to do. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I just want the truth. And then what? Then I'll decide what to do with it. Richard sighed. What do you need from me? Dom works at Patterson Automotive, right? Do you know anyone there? My cousin Jake works in the office. Why? I want to know Dom's schedule, when he's at work, when he's not, that kind of thing. Jesus, Greg, you're starting to sound like a stalker. I'm starting to sound like a husband who's tired of being lied to. After some more persuasion, Richard agreed to help. Within a few hours, he'd gotten Dom's work schedule from his cousin. Dom worked Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, with a lunch break from noon to 1. It was useful information, but I wasn't sure yet how I was going to use it. Sunday passed quietly. We took the kids to church, had lunch at my parents' house, where the atmosphere was still awkward after Thursday night's dinner, and spent the afternoon doing yard work. Alicia seemed to be making an extra effort to appear devoted, staying close to me, holding my hand during the sermon, laughing at my jokes a little too enthusiastically. But I noticed she kept checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Monday morning, I made a decision that would have seemed impossible a week earlier. Instead of going to work, I called in sick and followed my wife. Alicia left the house at her usual time, 8:15, ostensibly heading to the gym for her 9 o'clock class. I waited 5 minutes, then got in my car and drove a route that would intersect with hers about halfway to her destination. She wasn't going to the gym. Instead, she pulled into the parking lot of a coffee shop downtown, the kind of place that catered to young professionals and college students. Through the window, I could see her sitting at a corner table, and she wasn't alone. Dom Ruiz was everything I'd expected and worse. He was bigger than me, more conventionally handsome, with the kind of confident swagger that suggested he'd never doubted his own appeal. He was also married, which made his presence at a romantic coffee date particularly disgusting. I watched them for 20 minutes from my car, parked far enough away to avoid detection, but close enough to see their body language. They were clearly comfortable with each other, leaning across the table to touch hands, laughing at private jokes, behaving like a couple who'd been together for years rather than months. When they left the coffee shop, they didn't go their separate ways. Instead, Dom followed Alicia's car to a motel on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions about why people needed privacy in the middle of the morning. I sat in my car in the motel parking lot for 2 hours, watching the door to room 237, feeling like my entire life was collapsing in slow motion. When they finally emerged, Alicia looked satisfied and relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. Dom kissed her goodbye like they were saying goodnight after a date, not like they were cheating spouses sneaking around behind their families' backs. That evening, Alicia came home at her usual time and asked about my day like nothing had happened. "How are you feeling, honey? You looked a little pale this morning." "I'm fine," I said. "Just needed a rest day." "Good. I worry about you working too hard." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. She was worried about me working too hard while she was spending her mornings in motel rooms with another man. "How was your day?" I asked. "Oh, the usual. Taught 3 classes, did some administrative work, grabbed coffee with Susie." Lie after lie, delivered with the same casual tone she used to discuss grocery lists or weekend plans. "Susie's doing well?" "She's fine. Still dealing with some issues with Dom, but what else is new?" "What kind of issues?" "Oh, just typical marriage stuff. He works too much, doesn't pay enough attention to her, that sort of thing." I wondered if Susie knew her husband was cheating on her with her best friend, or if she was as clueless as I'd been until recently. Either way, Alicia's ability to discuss Dom's marriage problems while actively contributing to them was a level of compartmentalization I couldn't comprehend. That night, I lay awake planning my next move. I had evidence of the affair, but I needed to understand its full scope before I decided how to proceed. More importantly, I needed to figure out what outcome I actually wanted. Did I want to save my marriage? Was that even possible after what I'd learned? Did I want revenge? And if so, what would that look like? Did I want to expose them publicly, privately, not at all? The questions kept me awake until dawn, but by morning, I'd made a decision. I was going to give Alicia one more chance to tell me the truth. And if she couldn't do that, I was going to take control of the situation myself. Tuesday evening, I decided to force the issue. After the kids were in bed, I sat Alicia down at our kitchen table and placed a printed photograph between us. It showed her and Dom leaving the motel together, and while it wasn't explicitly compromising, it was damning enough. "Want to explain this?" I asked. Her face went white, then red, cycling through emotions like a broken traffic light. For a moment, I thought she might finally tell me the complete truth. Instead, she went on the attack. "You followed me? You've been spying on your own wife? You've been lying to your own husband. This isn't what it looks like." "Really? Because it looks like you and Dom coming out of a motel room together on Monday morning when you were supposed to be teaching fitness classes." "We were talking, Greg. Just talking." "In a motel room?" "It was the only place we could have privacy." "Privacy for what?" She was quiet for a long moment, probably trying to construct a story that would minimize the damage while still maintaining some version of plausible deniability. "Dom is having problems with Susie. He needed someone to talk to, and I've been trying to help him work through his issues." "By sleeping with him?" "We're not sleeping together." "Don't lie to me anymore, Alicia. I found your other phone." Her face crumpled. The game was over, and we both knew it. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. "Since Thursday night, when you announced to my parents that you were shopping around for a better husband." "I never said that." "You said you were exploring your options. Same thing." She started crying, but this time the tears felt real rather than manipulative. "I never meant for this to happen," she said. "But it did happen, and you kept making choices that made it worse. I was confused. I am confused. About what? About what I want. About who I am. About whether I'm happy with the life we've built." It was probably the most honest thing she'd said to me in months, and it hurt more than all the lies combined. Are you happy, Alicia? I don't know. Are you happy with Dom? I thought I was, but now I'm not sure that's real either. What do you mean? I mean, maybe I'm just running away from problems instead of solving them. Maybe I'm using Dom to avoid dealing with issues in our marriage. What issues? We never talk anymore, Greg. Not really. We go through the motions of being married, but we're not connected. So you decided to connect with someone else instead of talking to me? I tried to talk to you. You're always working or tired or dealing with kid stuff. That's what adults do, Alicia. They work and take care of their children. But what about taking care of each other? It was a fair point, and I couldn't dismiss it entirely. We had fallen into routines that prioritized everything except our relationship, but that didn't justify what she'd done. So what now? I asked. I don't know. That's not good enough. You need to make a decision. What kind of decision? You need to decide if you want to be married to me or not. If you do, then you end things with Dom completely, and we figure out how to fix what's broken between us. If you don't, then we get divorced, and you can be with whoever you want. And if I choose you, then you choose me, not him and me, just me. What about Dom? What about him? He has feelings, too. He's not my problem, Alicia. He's a married man who decided to have an affair with another married woman. Whatever feelings he has are his responsibility, not mine. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the photograph on the table. I need time to think, she said finally. How much time? I don't know. 1 week? That's not enough. It's plenty. You've been thinking about this for months while you were lying to me. Now you get 1 week to decide what you actually want. And if I can't decide? Then you've made your decision. She went upstairs without another word, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the evidence of her betrayal. I could hear her moving around in our bedroom, probably packing a bag or calling Dom or both. Around midnight, she came back downstairs. I'm going to stay with Susie for a few days, she said. Does Susie know about you and her husband? No, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell her. Why would I protect your secret? Because it would destroy her, and she doesn't deserve that. Neither did I. She didn't have an answer for that. After she left, I sat in the dark living room thinking about the conversation. Part of me felt relieved that everything was finally out in the open. Another part felt terrified about what came next. But there was a third part, a part I hadn't expected, that felt angry. Not just hurt or disappointed, but genuinely angry. Alicia had spent months lying to me, manipulating me, making me question my own perceptions and instincts. She'd exposed our family to gossip and speculation. She'd involved our children in her deception by using them as cover for her activities. And now she wanted time to think about whether she preferred her husband or her lover. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. By morning, I'd decided that 1 week wasn't enough time for Alicia to make her decision. It was too much time. Alicia stayed away for 3 days, during which time I took care of Ben and Ella, went to work, and tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy. The kids asked where their mother was, and I told them she was helping a friend who was going through a difficult time. It wasn't entirely a lie. On Friday evening, Richard called. How are you holding up? He asked. I've been better. Nikki wants to know if you need anything. Food, babysitting, someone to talk to. I'm okay for now. Any word from Alicia? A few texts about the kids. Nothing substantial. What's your gut telling you about what she's going to decide? I don't think she's going to decide anything. I think she's going to try to drag this out indefinitely while she figures out how to manage both relationships. And you're not going to let that happen? No, I'm not. What are you planning, Greg? I'm planning to make the decision for her. Saturday morning, I dropped the kids off at my parents' house and drove to Susie Park's place. It was time to have a conversation I'd been putting off. Susie answered the door, looking surprised to see me. She was a small woman with sharp features and an expression that suggested she was perpetually annoyed about something. I'd never particularly liked her, but I'd tolerated her because she was Alicia's best friend. Greg, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you about Dom. Her expression shifted from surprise to wariness. What about him? Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside to let me enter. Her house was immaculately decorated in a style that prioritized appearance over comfort. Everything looked expensive and fragile. Where's Alicia? I asked. She's at the store. She'll be back soon. Good. That gives us time to talk. About what? About the fact that your husband has been sleeping with my wife for the past several months. Susie's face went through the same emotional cycle I'd seen on Alicia's face earlier in the week. Shock, denial, anger, and finally a kind of resigned sadness. I was wondering when someone was going to say it out loud, she said quietly. You knew? I suspected. Dom's been acting different lately. More secretive, more critical of me, more interested in going to the gym. Why didn't you confront him? Because I was afraid of what he'd tell me. We sat down in her pristine living room, two people whose spouses had betrayed them in the most intimate way possible. How long have you known for Sheer? She asked. About a week. I caught them coming out of a motel together. Jesus, what do you want to do about it? What do you mean? I mean, do you want to try to save your marriage, or do you want to end it? I don't know. What about you? I gave Alicia a week to decide what she wanted, but I'm starting to think that was a mistake. Why? Because she shouldn't get to have both of us while she makes up her mind, and neither should Dom. Susie was quiet for a moment, then asked, What are you proposing? I'm proposing that we force them to make a choice, tonight. How? By confronting them together. No more secrets, no more lies, no more sneaking around. Everything out in the open. That sounds terrifying. It is terrifying, but it's also the only way this ends. Before Susie could respond, we heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I could see Alicia getting out of her car with grocery bags. She's back, Susie said. Good. Call Dom and tell him to come over. Tell him it's important. What if he won't come? He'll come. He won't be able to resist the opportunity to see Alicia. Alicia walked through the front door and froze when she saw me sitting in Susie's living room. Greg, what are you doing here? Waiting for you. We agreed I had a week to think. I changed my mind. Susie was on her phone, speaking quietly to someone. From her tone, I could tell it was Dom. He's coming, she said after hanging up. Who's coming? Alicia asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. Dom. We're all going to have a conversation. About what? About the fact that you and Dom have been having an affair, and it's time to decide what everyone wants to do about it. Alicia looked like she wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. She'd been caught, and we all knew it. 20 minutes later, Dom knocked on the door. When Susie let him in, he looked confused and slightly annoyed, like he'd been interrupted during something important. What's this about? He asked, then saw me and Alicia sitting across from each other. His confusion turned to understanding, then to something that looked like panic. Sit down, Dom, I said. I don't think I need to. Sit down. Something in my tone convinced him to comply. We were all sitting in Susie's living room now, the four corners of a love triangle that had finally collapsed in on itself. So, I said, looking around the room, here we are? Nobody spoke. Alicia, do you want to tell Susie what's been going on, or should I? Greg, please. Dom, do you want to tell your wife why you've been spending your lunch breaks at the Riverside Motel? Look, man, this is between you and Alicia. No, it's not. You're married too. This affects all four of us. Susie was staring at her husband like she'd never seen him before. Is it true, Dom? Susie, just answer the question. Have you been sleeping with Alicia? Dom looked at Alicia, probably hoping she'd help him find a way out of the situation, but Alicia was staring at her hands, offering no assistance. Yeah, he said finally. It's true. Susie started crying. Not the dramatic tears I'd seen from Alicia, but the quiet, devastated crying of someone whose world had just ended. How long? She asked. A few months. Where? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Different places. The motel, mostly. While I was at work? Yeah. While I was working extra shifts to pay for the vacation we're supposed to take next month? Dom didn't answer. I turned to Alicia. Your turn. Do you want to be with Dom, or do you want to be with me? It's not that simple, Greg. Yes, it is. You've had months to figure out your feelings. You've had a week to think about what you want. It's time to decide. I can't just choose, right now, in front of all of us. The room was completely silent except for the sound of Susie's quiet crying. Alicia looked around at each of us, probably searching for some escape route that didn't exist. I choose my family, she said finally. Which means I want to work things out with you. I turned to Dom. Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard it. So it's over between you two? Dom looked at Alicia one more time, then shrugged. I guess it is. Say it. What? Say it's over. Out loud, in front of your wife. It's over. Good. Now apologize to Susie. Greg, Alicia started. No. He owes her an apology, and he's going to give it to her. Dom looked at his wife, who was still crying quietly. I'm sorry, Susie. I screwed up. That's it? She asked. I don't know what else you want me to say. I want you to tell me why. I want you to tell me what I did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why? Dom was quiet for a long moment. Because I could, I guess. Because it was exciting. Because you could. Because she was interested, and you weren't anymore. I wasn't interested. Dom, I've been trying to get your attention for 2 years. I've been begging you to spend time with me, to talk to me, to act like you still cared about our marriage. That's not how I remember it. Of course it's not. I stood up. Alicia, get your things. We're going home. What about Susie? What about her? I can't just leave her like this. You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with her husband. Alicia gathered her belongings while the rest of us sat in uncomfortable silence. When she was ready, I walked toward the door. Greg, Susie called after me. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For making them tell the truth. I nodded and left with Alicia. In the car, she tried to start a conversation about what came next, but I wasn't ready to talk. We had a lot of work to do if we were going to save our marriage, but first, I needed to process what had just happened. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some control over my own life. It was a good feeling, but it wouldn't last long. The confrontation at Susie's house should have been the end of the story. Alicia had chosen our marriage, Dom had backed off, and the affair was officially over. We should have been able to move forward with the difficult work of rebuilding trust and repairing our relationship. Instead, everything got worse. The problem was that Alicia's choice hadn't been made from a place of genuine commitment to our marriage. It had been made under pressure, in front of an audience, with no real opportunity to consider the consequences. Within days, it became clear that she regretted her decision. She didn't say so directly, but her behavior spoke volumes. She was distant and irritable, going through the motions of being a wife and mother without any real engagement. She stopped initiating conversations, stopped making an effort with her appearance, and spent most of her free time staring at her phone with the expression of profound sadness. I tried to be patient. I understood that ending a relationship, even an inappropriate one, could be emotionally difficult. But patience became harder to maintain when I realized she was still in contact with Dom. I discovered it by accident on Thursday morning. Alicia was in the shower, and her phone was buzzing constantly on the nightstand. Thinking it might be something important related to the kids or her work, I glanced at the screen. The messages were from Dom. I can't stop thinking about you. This isn't over. Meet me tonight. Please. I'm going crazy without you. When Alicia came out of the bathroom, I was holding her phone. We need to talk, I said. Her face went pale when she saw what I was looking at. Greg, I can explain. I'm listening. He's been texting me nonstop since Saturday. I haven't been responding. I scrolled through the message history. She was telling the truth about not responding, but she also hadn't blocked his number or told him to stop contacting her. Why haven't you told him to leave you alone? I didn't want to make things worse. Worse for who? For everyone. For Susie? For you? For the kids. How would telling Dom to stop harassing you make things worse for anyone except Dom? She didn't have an answer for that. Block his number, I said, handing her the phone. Greg, block his number right now, or I'm going to assume you don't want him to stop contacting you. She took the phone and, after a moment of hesitation, blocked Dom's number. There, she said. It's done. But it wasn't done. Not really. That evening, while I was helping Ben with his homework, Alicia announced she was going to the grocery store. She was gone for 3 hours. When she came back, she had 1 bag of groceries and a guilty expression that told me everything I needed to know. Traffic was terrible, she said when I asked about the delay. Must have been. Friday night, she claimed she was going to a yoga class that ran late. Saturday afternoon, she had a training session that took most of the day. Sunday morning, she volunteered to pick up coffee for everyone before church and came back 40 minutes later with lukewarm drinks and another guilty expression. Each lie was small and probably deniable on its own, but together they painted a clear picture. Alicia hadn't chosen our marriage. She'd just chosen to be more careful about her affair. By Sunday evening, I'd made a decision. I called Richard. I need your help with something, I said. What kind of something? The kind that ends this situation once and for all. Greg, what are you planning? I'm planning to give Alicia and Dom exactly what they want, in a way that ensures everyone knows about it. That sounds ominous. It's not ominous. It's justice. Monday morning, I put my plan into motion. Instead of going to work, I followed Alicia again. This time, she went to a different location, a small park on the outskirts of town where she met Dom in the parking lot. They talked for a few minutes, then got into his car together. I followed them to the same motel they'd used before, but this time, I didn't just watch from my car. I got out and walked to the motel office. "Excuse me," I said to the clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s. "I think my wife might be in one of your rooms with another man. Is there any way you could help me confirm that?" "Sir, I can't give out information about our guests." "I understand. But if I could prove they were here, would you be willing to help me document it?" "What do you mean?" I explained my situation, showed her the photos I'd taken previously, and offered to pay for her assistance. After some negotiation, she agreed to help me get photographic evidence of Alicia and Dom entering and leaving the motel room together. 20 minutes later, I had everything I needed. But I wasn't done yet. That evening, I created a group text message that included Alicia, Dom, Susie, Richard, Nikki, my parents, Alicia's parents, and several of our mutual friends. I attached the photos I'd taken that morning, along with a brief message. I want everyone to know that, despite promising to end their affair, Alicia and Dom continue to meet secretly. I'm done pretending this isn't happening, and I'm done protecting people who don't deserve protection. Alicia, you can have Dom, but you can't have both of us, and you can't have our children. I sent the group message at 7 p.m., photos and proof attached, then turned off my phone. Alicia stormed in 20 minutes later, screaming, "You humiliated me." "You humiliated yourself," I said calmly. "I just showed everyone the truth." She threw things, cried, accused me of ruining the kids. I felt only cold satisfaction. Months of gaslighting ended. Messages poured in, support from my mother, shock from friends, and Susie's. "Thank you. I'm filing tomorrow." Dom pounded on the door later, furious. I told him his life was his own ruin. He left defeated. Divorces were swift. I kept primary custody, the house, most assets. Alicia and Dom's affair fizzled without secrecy. 6 months on, I'm rebuilding, focused on my children, no longer a victim. Consequences aren't cruel, they're just